Tension and anxiety filled the emergency room. All the doctor's eyes were on the patient lying in a coma breathing weakly. Everyone rushed to provide emergency aid while the sound of the ventilator and the sound of the patient monitor echoed throughout the room. What is the patient's current condition? Losing too much blood. Blood pressure continues to drop. The head doctor immediately instructed immediate blood transfusion. An assistant anxiously looked at the patient's monitor. Doctor, the patient's heart rate dropped below average. The assistant continued his speculation. It seems like an infection from metal fragments that we just released. The head doctor gasped. What? The assistant said anxiously. If we wait any longer the patient will have a heart attack. The assistant next to him quickly made a decision. I will perform CPR. A long beep echoed throughout the room, made all the doctors and nurses in the emergency room feel shocked and hopeless. The patient was no longer breathing and all the indicators on the patient monitor dropped to 0. The assistant sighed and reported, Doctor, the patient's heart has stopped completely. The head doctor was forced to painful announcement the patient was gone. Meanwhile the patient's family outside the emergency room collapsed to the ground. Worriedly the old woman couldn't hide the pain in her heart, tears streaming down her face as she looked at the doctor. Doctor, you can save my son, right? Please say you can save him. He has suffered so much because of a useless mother like me. He couldn't leave. The woman was sobbing. Her cries echoed heartbreakingly. He is my only son. My everything. Thinking of his son, the young man was lying on the operating table. He tried to beg the doctor. Please save him, but it was too late. The doctor had tried his best. Currently in the emergency room, the head doctor sadly announced the patient died at 22:49. The cause of death was infection from external wounds and brain death from excessive blood loss. The patient's mother outside the emergency room still doesn't know that her son has passed away. The only thing she can do now is sit and pray anxiously. Oh God, help! Her whole body trembling as tears streamed down his face. Suddenly the sound of footsteps made him look up. A doctor hurriedly walked straight into the emergency room. The door to the emergency room opened wide, surprising the doctors inside. The doctor who had just entered the room immediately instructed, the operation is not finished yet. Everyone return to their respective positions, prepare the indicator board and check the patient's vital signs. Dr. Lee, please blood transfusion faster. Everyone rushes to follow the doctor's instructions. Start by checking the metal fragments taken from patient and check for tetanus. We can still save him. It is surprising that the doctor who just gave such strict instructions and stated so confident as a young man. The female assistant looked at the head doctor with worry. Why operate on a dead patient? The head doctor calmly explained, not this time is different. You have probably never heard of this doctor. This person is the gold standard of technique medical. I also didn't know at first. But he is a person who can bring the dead back to life. The head doctor's words made the assistant stunned and in disbelief. He is known as the Hand of God Shin Yu-sung. The operation lasted late into the night, but it was all worth it. With efforts, all the doctors and assistants, now able to let go of the heavy burden in their hearts, heaved a sigh of relief. The doctor who completed a successful emergency operation encouraged his colleagues. Good work everyone. The doctor left the emergency room and opened a can of cold coffee. Doctor, the young man breathed a sigh of relief. Sung tiredly thought to himself, I won't be able to rest this time either. He stepped out of the hospital late at night. Sung sighed softly. I thought I would rest, but I ended up being stuck in the operating room. All day this is a life full of stress, he thought while looking at the sky. The city night still lit by street lights. Sung pondered his nickname, God's Hand. I was called by that name because I can even save the dead. A stream of thoughts flowed continuously in his mind. At first I thought it was fine because the joy of saving people who were on the verge of death was my motivation to work. But I didn't have any time to rest at all. After patients came in droves because of this rumor. Sung seemed to be a little tired of his nickname. He fell into contemplation and perhaps a bit of dissatisfaction, thinking that he was being exploited. I was always assigned to treat VIP patients. I was treated like a portable medical device to use whenever they wanted. Looking at his talented hands, Sung felt uncomfortable. Since then, that's when I started to think that the title Hand of God was meaningless. Even the doctors around me got scared and left the hospital. Basically, I'm now an outcast. Walking home alone in the middle of the night, Yu Sung felt this sense of loneliness getting deeper. He asked himself, when was the last time I took time for myself, in the midst of this stressful life and all this flattery? Well, making a lot of money, that's nice, but I don't have time to spend it. Yu Sung sighed and pondered. He tried to force a smile and consoled himself. Maybe my life is doomed. I'll open a beer when I get home. Unfortunately for the talented doctor, his lament about his ruined life came true. When a car suddenly drove towards him, Yu Sung was shocked and stood frozen with impact. After the sound of the collision, a series of images flashed before Yu Sung's eyes. Like a movie being replayed, another thought flashed through his mind. They say that before you die your whole life flashed before your eyes, right? Yu Sung's bag was thrown 8 meters, indicating that this was serious car accident. He barely managed to survive, and Yu Sung's last thought before saying goodbye to this life was, why did I only see the scene from the operating room before I died? The view shifted to a magnificent building looking like an ancient academy that stood under the sunlight. Its massive and ancient architecture exuded an aura of majesty, hiding behind it a sense of power and wealth. In contrast to the majestic buildings, it was a simple small house. Inside the house a gentle voice called, Ray. That gentle voice woke Yu Sung in a daze. Yu Sung thought to himself, whose voice is this? Am I not dead? Meanwhile a woman's soft voice continued to sound in his ears. Oh, the child is awake, look at him. Opening his eyes, look at your hands carefully. Yu Sung panicked. What's this? Why are my hands like this? Looking towards the sweet voice he saw 2 strangers. The woman looked at Yu Sung with a bright smile. Ah, darling, we are awake. Surprised and confused, Yu Sung's eyes widened as the woman said, oh my dear Ray, I don't believe my Ray wakes up. So adorable, the woman said excitedly. The man standing next to her happily chimed in, he inherited it from you. The couple laughed and talked to each other, their faces filled with happiness. Held and cradled in the woman's arms, Yu Sung in his beloved son's body is still unconscious. What happened? What really happened? Searching his memory, Yu Sung can only remember when I came home from the hospital. I remember being hit by a truck and dying. How am I still alive, and who are these people? A series of questions bombarded his mind. Yu Sung still trying to understand the current situation. Yu Sung was increasingly shocked by the father's excessive affection. The mother saw the baby's discomfort and said, honey, Ray hurt him, but the father didn't want to let him go. But he was very cute. Without caring about the couple's affection, Yu Sung is preoccupied with his miraculous rebirth. In this tiny body, why is my body so small? Don't tell me, did I come back to life as their son? And these people look like they are doing cosplay. Yu Sung is gradually realizing the situation. At this time the mother took the baby from the father's arms, examining the red mark on his tiny hand with concern. My little Ray, daddy's beard must have hurt you. Oh my gosh, look at the scratches on your hand. The father finally became worried. Is Ray hurt? Pastor, we need to call a priest. Doctor, for a small child it's okay. I can cure it myself. Yu Sung was surprised to hear this. Heal me. Does he also know about medicine? It can leave scars if he only uses ointment. However, the healing action the mother completely different from what Yu Sung expected. A blue light radiated from his hand as he placed it on the baby's hand. After the flash of light the scratch disappeared as if it had never existed. Yu Sung continued to be amazed by this new world, how the scratch healed instantly. This medicine is magic. The mother excitedly showed off her success to her husband. Okay, I've finished healing him. He's completely healed. It's completely gone. See, I told you I could do it myself, right? While the mother continued to be proud of her magic, the father sighed. A sigh of relief. Yes, it's a relief. It seems your magic abilities are still functioning well. Hearing their conversation, Yu Sung became more confident in his guess. Did he just say magic? I thought I had been reborn in a new world. 3 months later, one night when the couple sound asleep, the house became silent in the darkness of the night. Yu Sung in the body of a child named Ray lay restlessly in his little crib, lost in thought. Unlike the attitude of babies in general, it's been a long time since I was able to sleep this long, Yu Sung thought to himself as he looked at the moonlit night sky. After some time in Ray, Yu Sung's body gradually adjusted to his new life and learned more about this world. It has been 3 months since I was reincarnated into this world. During that time I have learned several things. Firstly, this world is different from the previous world. It is as you would think a typical fantasy world. A world where monsters are a species similar to humans, therefore humans are attacked by monsters, and as a result humans have to choose a path that requires risking their lives them to become stronger. Remembering the times Sign's mother used magic, Yu Sung realized something quite interesting. They rather decided to develop magic rather than science. Every time Sign healed my wounds it seems they relied on magic instead of medical techniques, even for the most ordinary things. The last thing I realized was that this was not a dream but my new reality, but for some reason I can still retain the memories and knowledge of my past life. Looking out the simple window, Yu Sung felt so comfortable. I never thought I could be this relaxed again. Now that I think about it, I never had the chance to love myself because of my job. If it wasn't for the car accident I would probably have died from overwork. Yu Sung recalled his past life was full of hard work and couldn't resist feeling tired. Thinking about his past, Yu Sung increasingly appreciates his current free life. Because I have been reincarnated, I have to enjoy this moment. Who knows when I can sleep this soundly again. Lying in the crib comfortable, baby Yu Sung quickly fell asleep. From now on the doctor has fully embraced his new life as Ray. In his dream Ray found something strange inside his body. Huh, what is this? It feels like a thin thread running through my body. What is this cold sensation? I feeling very refreshed. A flow of energy enveloped Ray's body, then seemed to flow naturally into him. Is this the mana that Ale and Sign mentioned? It doesn't seem easy to control. If I force it, it will scatter everywhere. Let's try to focus exactly where the threads are, where this begins and ends. Ray tries to find a way to control and manipulate mana with his mind. Mana should work similar to blood. Try to imagine the flow of mana like blood flow. Try to feel it fill your body. Endless flow of mana like that. No need to rush. Slowly. So Ray quietly trained his ability to control mana like a caterpillar wrapping around itself. As time passed, autumn passed and winter came. 3 years passed. Ray had grown taller. His hands were far away bigger and his ability to control his mana had progressed to the point where he could release it, turning it into fire. Finally succeeded. Ray cheered as he saw the small flame in his hand. Haha, I didn't think I could do this technique to control the flow of mana to fire. That fireball was worth the 3 years I spent on it. Despite its initial success, Ray wasn't satisfied for long. He continued to bury his head in books to learn more about mana control. Even though I managed to understand mana flow and memorize possible paths he could take, the problem was that I couldn't understand how this book explained mana control. Ray studied the book for hours but still had a lot of doubts. The book told me to store mana in the body and control it when needed. Since mana is supposed to be taken from around us, why does it need to be stored within us? Moreover, this seems to limit what we can do with it once it is stored. Any way you look at it, it is inefficient. After some reasoning he tried to hypothesize, what if we let the mana flow naturally without storing it? Wouldn't it be easier to draw mana from around us and use it? In that case we wouldn't have to worry about the quality of the mana anymore, and we could even avoid the mana circle. Although this is a dangerous method that is not written in the books, is worth trying once. Thinking about this, Ray boldly experimented. Immediately the positive results exceeded expectations, making Ray happy. I never thought it would bring results beyond expectations. I need to try it more. While Ray was engrossed in his research, Sign was overjoyed with his ability to learn independently. He bragged to his husband, "Look, I can't tell you how proud I am every time I see Ray reading a book whenever he gets the chance. I told you too what our son will definitely become a magician." Thinking differently from Sign, Ale expected something else from Ray. "What are you talking about? With his physique he needs to be trained as a swordsman." Sign waved his hand, rejecting her husband's suggestion. "If that happens, our handsome Ray will be forced to become a lump of muscle like you." Ale was still trying to force at least a handsome lump of muscle. The couple was so engrossed in their bickering that they didn't realize they were talking loud enough for Ray to hear everything. If they were talking this loud, what was the point hiding it from me? Sign suddenly said with a little worry, "Although I feel proud of our little Ray, don't you think he is too focused on books?" Ale doesn't understand. "What do you mean?" Sign explained, "Shouldn't children his age go out and play with his friends? I'm just worried that our Ray just wants to read a book." Ale comforts his wife. "Come on. There's nothing to worry too much about. Most people worry that their children don't like reading, right? You even said you wanted to raise our child to be a magician. Skilled, so what's wrong with that? Despite being reassured by her husband, Sign is still quite concerned about this. Meanwhile, Ray is still focused on his mana research. This is still not enough. I need to create a perfect pathway for the mana to flow as perfectly as possible. I need to create the perfect path for the mana to flow as perfectly as possible. In the following days, Ray continued to be persistent in finding a way to control his mana effectively, as he wanted. One fine day, Sign opened the door to Ray's room wide and said cheerfully, "Is our Ray the handsome one is here?" Ray cheerfully answered his mother, "Yes, I am here." Sign became even more worried when he saw Ray still sitting in the same place with a pile of books as tall as him. He was reading again. "Although I am proud that he is here reading, I still want to he can meet his friends were his age and playing." Seeing Ray's innocent face, Sign thought to himself, "Is it because I haven't had the chance to play with him?" Thinking about that, Sign couldn't help but feel guilty and hoped he could give his son the happiest and most carefree childhood. Maybe Sign came closer and leaned into his son's face and asked, "Ray, do you want to play with me?" Ray asked in surprise, "Play with you?" Thinking like an adult in a child's body, Ray interpreted Sign's words like this. Was he trying to teach me magic? Yes, I certain he tried to play with me so he could teach me some things. Thinking of learning magic, Ray excitedly immediately agreed. "Yes, let's play." Sign was silent for 5 seconds before his son's excited reaction. Thinking that his son was so happy just because he could play with him, he should have asked her sooner. Sign hugged Ray tightly, almost suffocating him, with a series of question marks appearing in his head about his mother's strange actions and reactions. Then Ray started to feel something was wrong. Mother, his books, why are we in front of the door?" Sign answered with a smile. "That's right, you don't need to look at the book today, we will go for a walk outside." Realizing that he had misunderstood his mother's intentions, Ray hurriedly refused. "Oh no, I think I need to study more." He thought in my heart, "I can't spend time playing outside when I should be practicing." Sign didn't understand why Ray was so eager to study. He hugged his son affectionately and said, "I didn't expect you to be so eager to study. What should I do with you?" "Proud, but today it's okay." Sign's next words shocked Ray. "Don't you want to see what it's like outside? Let's go out and try to have fun." He suddenly realized, "Now that I think about it, I haven't been out of the house since I reincarnated. I even don't know what this world is like. Okay, I can take a day off." Finally Ray agreed with his mother. "Okay, let's go out and have fun." "Perfect. Let's go immediately." Sign excitedly pulled Ray out, seeing the new world. For the first time, Ray opened his eyes wide, amazed with everything new and beautiful. This world looks so peaceful, with small and simple houses located close together, blue and red tiles mixed under the golden light of the setting sun. The surrounding greenery brings a refreshing feeling, completely different from the bustling city scene he had ever seen in his previous life. Standing in front of such a poetic and beautiful scene, Ray lamented in his heart, "During the 3 years I spent reading books at home, I never even thought about going out. I was imprisoned by myself. I never even thought about going out. I was imprisoned by myself." Sign's clear voice interrupted Ray's thoughts. "Ray, what are you doing? Why don't you try exploring?" Sign's words reminded Ray that he had a new life and was a child who could enjoying all the joys of childhood. He started running on the vast green grassy hill. The feeling of being a child again was amazing for someone who had experienced a lot of stress in his previous life like Ray. He continued to stride across the grassy hill freely, letting his soul go with the wind and the scent of flowers and grass. Perhaps Ray had never felt such joy since his reincarnation. An expression of joy appeared on Ray's face that his mother had never seen in the past 3 years. Running to the large lake at the foot of the hill, Ray stopped to admire the clear blue sky reflected in the crystal clear water. He was truly amazed by the peaceful beauty of this land. Admiring the beautiful view in front of him, Ray thought back, "Before I was reincarnated, I never had the chance to care for myself. I was forced to live under pressure. Surviving is the best I can do. I've never felt this free before. Surviving is the best I can do. I've never felt this free before, but I'm happy to be born in this world, touched by the world, this beautiful new moment." Ray called Mom. Sign was surprised. "Ha!" Ray turned to look at his mother with a happy smile he had never seen before and eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you for taking me out. The scene suddenly changed back to the hospital setting with the atmosphere tense and rushed from the doctors and rescue workers. Emergency patient. Yu Sung thought with disappointment that perhaps he had returned to his life in the modern world, seeing himself again in the familiar surgical attire with a scalpel in the hand of God, carefully performed complicated medical techniques. Yu Sung silently lamented the repetitive life where I was with patients all day and in surgery. I'm tired now, just coming out of the operating room, a nurse announced. The next operating doctor will arrive in 5 minutes. Then it sounded the patient's voice begging, "Save me." These familiar urging sounds continued to echo even though he was so tired he collapsed in a chair. "Your doctor has to go." Ray suddenly woke up with a start, his face pale and drained of blood. The horrific sights and pressures of past life then he strangled him, making it hard to breathe. Seeing his son wake up with a start, Sign stroked his head comfortingly. "What nightmare did you have?" Ray thought to himself that he was lucky it was just a nightmare. It was just a dream. Came back to his senses, realizing that he was asleep in his mother's lap while enjoying a peaceful and quiet life in the new world. He clicked his tongue and sighed softly. I was having fun, then I dreamed of something like this." Looking down from the hill at the beautiful city under the warm sunlight, Ray reminded himself that this is not a dream. It's true that I have been reborn in this world, and he also reminded himself to change his way of life so as not to become a medical tool like before. I will definitely not live like I did in my previous life. Finally, mother's outing and the child ends up happy, and perhaps the biggest gain is Ray's new sense of this wonderful world. We return. Sign and Ray happily step into a comfortable home where an apron-wearing husband and father has prepared a delicious meal who was waiting for them. "Welcome home. Did you have fun playing?" Ray quickly answered, "Yes, I had fun." "Oh right." Ray suddenly remembered something. He pulled his mother's clothes and called out, "Mom, please teach me magic." Along with the plea was wide-eyed, sparkling looking at Sign. This made Sign's heart melt. "Wait a minute, how can my son be so cute and adorable?" Sign fell into her husband's arms, overwhelmed by her son's very cute actions. How could she refuse such a cute face and such an adorable request? "You want to practice on my own if you want. I'm always happy to teach you." Ray smiled shyly, thinking to himself that Sign's reaction was a bit excessive. Haha, even though I've seen this reaction many times, I'm still not used to it. Sign said excitedly, because this is a request from Ray. "Should we start now?" And he immediately raised his hand, easily creating a fireball. After a moment of silence, Ray reluctantly reacted to this fireball magic. He pretended to be surprised, gasping, and widened his eyes as if he was very astonished. Sign immediately noticing something strange in his son's reaction, he tried to explain further. "Ray, this is fire, isn't this interesting?" But his response was still a somewhat forced wow and fake applause, because Ray had been able to create his own fireball for a long time. Sign guessed, is it still not impressive enough? Maybe because this is magic that I've used several times before. Sign thought that explaining the magic in detail to Ray would take time, and he suggested that we should sit down first. Then Sign kindly explained, "The thing about magic is that with the magic you want to use, you convert it into mana. With the word activation, it is like fire, and the act of activation, the result will be a ball of fire as desired. That's how easy it is, right?" Once Sign is done, explained, Ray said, "Mother, I have a question." Responding like a teacher in general to students who study diligently, Sign answered, "Okay, student Ray." Ray asked the question, "Can you change mana through a different method?" Sign asked back, "Different method?" He seemed not understanding his son's meaning. Ray explained, "Well, I mean, take fire as an example. You ignite the mana and you gather the mana you want to burn and use friction instead of changing the mana 3 times. Why not make it simpler? Although if you do that, the mana will quickly disappear." Sign was surprised by a rather difficult question from his 3-year-old son. "Oh my, an advanced question?" Thinking for a moment, he answered, Right, and it's not impossible." Sign concluded, "If those 3 things are combined and then stabilized, it's possible." He also stressed, "It's theoretical. It seems like no one has ever done that before, so I can't be sure if Ray's idea will work." Ray also understands that, so he can only respond with a smile. Ray as usual looked up at the ceiling and fell into his own thoughts, pondering him to stabilize it. "That means in the complete state I can add more attributes." Yeah, unconsciously while reasoning and experimenting with an outstretched hand, Light flashed across Ray's palm. He emitted a wave of energy that shot upwards, illuminating the surrounding space, making Sign stunned. Succeeded on the first try. Ray's face lit up with joy. I succeeded. Ale saw the strange light rushing out of the kitchen and excitedly asked what was it, what happened. Sign was still overwhelmed, thinking right now I don't know. Staring intently at his 3-year-old son, Sign couldn't believe what he was seeing. For a moment before he used magic, I didn't notice that when he used magic the flow of mana always moved, but did I ever not feel it? Sign himself was confused by his son's mana control ability. Meanwhile, Ray was still deep in thought about the successful experiment. As expected, it's easy to understand when you think of it like an atom, and if you start combining mana like a compound, you don't need to add mana. Sign continued focused on his son's actions and couldn't stop thinking, this kid has so many strange things about him. Noticing that his actions were a bit unusual compared to other kids his age, Ray immediately looked at who looked very worried. Oh no, I'm too focused. He gave his mother a bright smile, trying to calm her worries. Mother, is there something wrong? Sign, who was surprised by his son's sudden question, stuttered. Oh, it's okay. I'm just very proud that Ray can use magic. Trying to break the unusual atmosphere, Ray scratched his head shyly and said, really? It seems I am a genius. Sign immediately chimed in with loud applause. Our son is amazing. That night Ray pretended to be asleep and overheard his parents talking. Sign said to his husband, this is a serious matter. What should we do if he was taken away to the academy at this age? Sign anxiously held his husband's hand. Ale gently rubbed his wife's small hand to comfort her. We must do our best to prevent that from happening. That conversation also made Ray a little worried. He wondered, are they talking about me? Ale said to his wife, I know it's not as easy as I say. Sign emphasized to his husband. Ray is a genius who only appears once in hundreds, not thousands of years. He hesitantly looked at his son, who was lying down, and said, if he was known by the academy. Hearing his parents' conversation, Ray turned around worriedly, thinking, I don't know what kind of place the academy is, but it looks like I can be taken there to prevent it as planned. I need power. I want to learn magic for fun, but I've changed my mind. I must achieve absolute power. The peaceful morning arrives again. The birds diligently rise early to welcome the dawn as usual. The sparkling sunlight peeking through the gaps in the leaves illuminates the window. Ray, on the table behind the window, a pile of half-read books and extinguished candles indicated that Ray had stayed up late again to read. Stretching his body and yawning with the refreshing air, Ray woke up. Looking out the window filled with sunlight, it was morning. Ray scratched his messy silver hair, thinking to myself, I love sleeping so much. I can't believe how much time has passed. With a cheerful smile, perhaps Ray is in a good mood today and preparing for the exciting journey ahead. Shall I go exploring now? For 12 years of experimentation and Ray's research on magic increased in level, and his talent in understanding mana proved his rapid development. Due to the enormous amount of mana absorbed during this time, his hair had turned pure white. The 15-year-old Ray confidently utilized his magical abilities and medical knowledge for an exciting journey of discovery. Alright, I should take this too. Let's get ready to go, he said, holding a wooden plank in his hand. I don't know how much of my medical knowledge I will use, but let's just try. The plank inscribed with a few simple words, I can heal those who are sick, and that was Ray's goal, to continue the work of saving people from his previous life. With his preparations complete, Ray took a deep breath. But before I go, maybe one last time. Fire flared up. After that, the air and ice also swirled at Ray's command. The explosion, as he combined everything just by snapping his fingers, magic with terrifying power was released by a 15-year-old boy. This is what gave Ray the confidence to start the journey. Awesome, this is perfect. I really have to go now. The view turns to the downtown area with close-knit houses and busy streets. Placing the boards on the road excitedly, Ray thought to himself, this seems like a reasonable place. This was the first time a hint of embarrassment crossed his face. He cleared his throat ahem. This seemed a little embarrassing. In the crowd of people passing by, Ray shouted loudly, I can cure anyone who feels unwell. Bring the sick here. After its quiet unusual, the crowd burst into laughter. A man complimented him. The kind young man and the woman accompanying him added, you are right. The laughter continued. They thought Ray was joking, and it was clearly unbelievable. The crowd laughed and said to Ray, son, go playing a saint somewhere else. You shouldn't prank a sick person like that. Hearing the chatter of the crowd who didn't seem to believe his claims, Ray fell silent, somewhat annoyed. Who do these people think they are? But after a few seconds he regained his composure and convincing himself, no, I have to anticipate this, I won't just give up once I've started. He firmly continued what he was doing, or just wait a little longer. As a result, from morning to evening no patients came. I can't believe there weren't any, no one came. I don't think I can do anything, I have to go home today. Ray decided after sighing in disappointment, but he stopped when a figure dressed in a gown passed by his side. A young girl's voice sounded. Can you really heal the sick? He asked Ray. It doesn't matter what disease it is, right? His eyes looked worried. Ray was still surprised by the girl's sudden appearance, wondering, could this be my first patient? While Ray was still in a daze, the girl urgently asked again, can you truly healing them? Overwhelmed by the girl's imposing aura, Ray finally managed to open his mouth and reply, well, I'll have to check first. The girl frowned at the young man in front of her, expressing doubt over Ray's abilities. Previously Ray could even proving his skills. He spoke harsh words that pierced his heart. It's absurd to think that an idiot like you can heal anyone, really. Can't accept being openly belittled like that, Ray shouted angrily. Hey midget, feeling very offended. Girl it turned around angrily. What did you say, midget? Ray confidently replied, I may look like a useless 15-year-old on the streets, but Therese, no patient in this world that I can't cure. Stop judging by appearances. Ray's confident attitude and firm startled the girl. He's a stupid brat, but what is this strange feeling of confidence? For a moment Ray's figure didn't look like a boy but like an adult. The girl was confident with his trustworthy appearance, saying, right, you're right, I'm sorry. Introduced myself formally. I am the only daughter of Imperial Commander Gade von Alicia. Ray also hurriedly introduced herself. My name is Ray. Alicia asked in surprise, why are you suddenly using such formal language? Speak like before. Ray immediately agreed. Oh okay. After Alicia's introduction went straight to the point, the reason she was looking for Ray. By the way, the patient I mentioned earlier was my father. Ray was a little surprised. His first patient was someone with the high status of an Imperial commander. Gade, Alicia sadly said. Previously the skin on his chest turned red and developed into a lump, then swelled like a ball. As a genius doctor, after hearing the symptoms, a thought crossed Ray's mind. Could it be a malignant tumor? But if it was a tumor the size of a ball, it might be too late. Don't want to waste time valuable to save Imperial Commander. Ray and Alicia immediately ran. Not long after, Alicia's footsteps stopped in front of a luxurious house. We have arrived, let's go in. When seeing Alicia, the butler hurriedly called, young miss, you are back. Alicia grabbed the head's hand. The maid shook it anxiously and asked, butler, how is my father? The butler sadly said that young Miss Imperial Commander's condition had suddenly worsened and she had passed away. Alicia was heartbroken and teary-eyed in disbelief at what had just happened. She heard, young lady. Alicia ran away amidst the butler's desperate calls. No, in her heart, she continued to deny this great loss. As soon as she entered her father's room, Alicia couldn't hold back her tears, screaming for her father in sadness. Alicia was truly fainted when she saw her mother sobbing at her father's bedside. She rushed to her father's side. No, father, please. Alicia covered her face and cried bitterly. At this time Ray also ran in, rushing to the Imperial Commander's side. May I see him? Getting closer, Ray felt the bad energy coming from the tumor on the Imperial Commander's chest. The bruised tumor was the size of a fist, but under the ribs there seemed to be a pulse. Ray gently touched the Imperial Commander's chest using magic to feel his pulse. It was weak, but he could still feel it. He confidently declared, surprising everyone. He was still alive. The Imperial Commander's family was completely shocked by Ray's firm statement, and they also felt the glimmer of hope ignited by him within the mansion. With trembling hands holding Ray's clothes, Alicia begged Ray, please save him. Her tears flowed down like rain. With a confident, triumphant smile, Ray smiled brightly, reassuring Alicia with his confidence. Don't worry. The captain of the night squad asked the butler, who is the child? The butler answered, I'm not sure, it seems like he came with Alicia. Looking at the strange silver-haired boy, the captain suddenly remembered. Wait a minute, didn't he just say he could save the Imperial Commander? The servant next to him suspiciously commented, maybe it's an imposter, maybe he intends to steal something valuable here. At this time the Imperial Commander's wife spoke up. Right now it doesn't matter, I just want to hold on to the last glimmer of hope that this boy might be able to create a miracle. Meanwhile Rei, focused checking the Imperial Commander's condition, concluded, I can't believe this thing could grow so big and become so rotten and blackened. The critical situation forced him to immediately start treatment. He focused his mind. First I need to concentrate mana to form a scalpel. Immediately a scalpel appeared on Rei's fingertip. Everyone was shocked by the sight. The captain of the night squad immediately exclaimed, Hayu, what are you doing? The captain shouted, surprising Rei and made him cover his ears. Glancing at the captain in annoyance, Rei replied, what do you think is going on? I tried to heal him. The captain continued to shout angrily, don't be ridiculous, how can you heal him like that? Rei took a cold breath and said, if you don't believe me I can stop now, no problem. The captain gritted his teeth looking at Rei with annoyed. This damn man. Suddenly the Imperial Commander's wife shouted, Captain. She convinced the captain for now. Trust this child, Captain. Obeyed and lowered his head. I understand, madam. Hearing this, Rei waved his hand in front of the captain. Yes, shut up and go, you don't annoy me. The captain was angry but could only grit his teeth and endure. This arrogant brat. Rei used a scalpel to make a small incision on the tumor. The result made him doubt. When he stabbed the tumor, pus came out instead of blood. This is no longer a tumor. Rei hesitated in his mind, it's a necrotic area due to the poison expression. Rei became serious, standing beside the Imperial Commander. Rei's bed, focused on controlling the flow of mana around him and preparing for treatment. He rolled up his sleeves as a habit before starting the operation. Alright then, now let's start. Rei confidently held the scalpel and seriously looked at the tumor on the Imperial Commander's chest. First I need to cut off all the necrotic parts. Rei quickly moved the knife to the base of the tumor. The incision was close to the skin of the Imperial Commander's chest but not touching healthy skin. Alicia was amazed by this special magic, while the butler nervously watched every step of this strange treatment that he had never seen before in his life. After completely removing the black tumor from the skin, Rei treated the damage inside Imperial Commander's body. He made an incision in his chest area. Seeing the condition inside the Imperial Commander's chest made Rei dumbfounded. As I thought, his lungs were also starting to experience necrosis. But from another point of view you could say he was quite lucky. Rei thought to himself, this necrotic area, it's not very big, so even if I cut it all off he should be able to recover. Rei quickly performed a complicated surgical technique with a scalpel in his hand. After removing all sources of disease from the lungs, the Imperial Commander Rei took out the threads from his two left fingers, while stitching up the cut area with mana thread. His hand deftly pulled the mana stitch through the Imperial Commander's wound. This strange healing scene made everyone standing there speechless. The butler's comment broke the silence in the room. The boy that young Miss brought, come here, I am truly speechless. She not only has an aura that no one of young Miss's age has, but her expert hand movements are as skilled as a puppeteer. While everyone is still in awe of Rei's aura and her skilled surgical hands, she will finishing the operation with just one last move. Rei thought to himself, I'll finish it by tying the knot. The butler looked at the back of the strange young man, pondering for a moment, then changed his mind. No, he's like a puppet god. That boy might really be able to creating a miracle. The butler's comment made the servant who previously suspected Rei to be a fraud change his attitude, saying words of admiration. I agree. Rei breathed a sigh of relief, wiping the beads of sweat on his face, and said, okay, almost done. Neat stitching on the chest. The Imperial Commander proved Rei's skill. The operation is complete, and he thought to himself, now I just need to help restore his heartbeat a little. I will use mana to perform emergency resuscitation. Rei placed his hand on the Imperial Commander's chest, applying pressure. Mana gathered under Rei's hands and flowed into the Imperial Commander's chest. With medical knowledge from his previous life, he thought, I just need to help massage his heart. The result was successful as he expected. Mana created an impulse that was transmitted to the commander's heart. The Empire stimulated him to beat again. He happily exclaimed, it's done. He's alive. The operation was a huge success. Rei turned to look at the Imperial Commander's family, but their reaction was not like a typical patient's family. They were completely stunned. Their faces were pale when he heard Rei's good news. Ray also felt that there was something wrong with their attitude. He thought to himself their expressions were what happened. Glancing at the Imperial commander, he suddenly understood the reason why blood was flowing from his mouth. Ray knew this was a normal phenomenon because blood suddenly started to circulate in the previously dead body, causing him to bleed. The captain of the night squad immediately gritted his teeth and shouted in anger. "Bastard!" He pointed at Ray's face and shouted, "I knew it, I knew you were just a shaman." Ray thought to himself, this man again, but in reality outwardly he still looked reconciled as his opponent was somewhat bigger than him. He raised his hand to stop the captain and said, "Excuse me, please let me explain a little." However, the captain firmly refused to give Ray time to explain. He shouted, "You are still trying to justify yourself." Ray patiently answered, "But he is alive now." The captain became more and more agitated, was about to rush forward and grabbed Ray by the collar. He shouted, "You are still trying to fool us. How can he be alive? I just saw a bloody body." Ray is still trying to explain everything. It wouldn't be a problem, he was actually alive. Despite his attempts to explain, the captain of the night squad completely ignoring Ray's words, he shouted, "Shut up, I don't believe you can dissect the body of a noble. Are you human?" Seeing such a tough attitude, Ray was calmed down and said, "Wait a minute, okay." When the two sides were arguing fiercely, Alicia suddenly spoke up, "Ray, you told me you would definitely be able to save her," she shouted angrily and disappointed. "I believed you, but now she's like this." Ray stared, Alicia, and confirmed once again, "Wait a minute, he really isn't dead." Alicia sobbed, blaming herself in sadness, "My father died because I brought you here." Seeing Alicia crying like that, Ray became confused. He confirmed again, "He is truly healed, just wait and see." As Ray was deep in thought, wondering why is everyone like this, is it because they have no experience with surgery? Suddenly a sparkling sword pointed at his chest, making him jump in surprise. The captain of the night squad raised his sword and scolded, "You lowly commoners, not only did you hurt the Imperial commander, but you also deceived the young miss." The captain of the night squad, his face filled with killing intent, charged towards Ray with his sword, continuing to shout, "Isn't it enough that you stained the Imperial commander's body?" Standing in Ray's sharp sword was silent for a moment, not believing that he had saved someone and was rewarded so generously. Ray's face hardened, no longer as gentle as before. He sighed and said, "Ha, I spent so much effort to save him, but I didn't receive any thanks, but you also pointed a sword at my face." Ray gritted his teeth and asked the rude captain again, "What did you just say? I'm a cheater and a murderer." His face then immediately turned grim. His sharp eyes stared at the captain, said each word clearly, "You guys are the wrong person." Ray's face darkened as he tried to suppress the anger in his heart. He thought to himself, "I know their reaction is annoying, but if you think about the standards of this world, this is actually quite normal." Ray tried to stay calm and confirm again to the Imperial commander's family, "I'll say it again, the treatment worked, and threats that make them shiver. And I warn you, don't you dare try to stop me." The captain of the night squad gritted his teeth so hard they creaked. His face flushed with anger. He swung his sword at Ray while shouting, "Feel this, cocky brat." Not wanting to waste any more words, Ray didn't even bother turning around to face the captain's attack. He only glanced at the captain, clenching his fists and uttering one word, "Tai." Chaos chains wrapped around the captain's muscular body, freezing him in a posture of raising his sword. Squad captain the knight struggled, trying to break free from the chains while shouting, "Binding spell, how could he use this kind of magic?" The soldiers around him panicked, not knowing what to do. The captain shouted even more angrily, "What are you guys doing? Catch him quickly." Even though he himself was panicking because he was tied tightly by a boy who used magic, the captain was still trying to direct the soldiers. He couldn't use many spells at once. "Hurry up." The confused soldiers answered, "Yes, master." While the others were wasting time creating commotion, before rushing forward, Ray just stood still, using only one movement, and said one word, "Bind." To face them, a series of chains appeared in the air, tightly binding the soldiers, armor making them unable to move. The captain was truly shocked by this sight. Stuttered magic, dual magic. At this age he could already use dual magic. Seeing the young man with the ability to control mana as strong and complex as a high-level magician, the captain stuttered, "What exactly is this boy?" Ignoring the soldiers who were tied tightly in place, Ray continued walking and emphasized again to the Imperial commander's family, "This is the final warning, don't get in my way." He didn't need to raise his voice like a captain, but Ray's words carried an invisible weight that made everyone wary. Ray stepped out of the mansion. Imperial Commander. As night fell, he let out a sigh of frustration, lamenting even though the differences between medical practices are so wide, this is simply outrageous. As he walked home, Ray grumbled, how dare they treat me like a clueless little cheat. Yet he was also a little happy that his first case in this world had been successfully treated. That was the first patient I treated here, Ray thought as he opened the door and entered his house. After this first experience, Ray realized, as I thought my medical skills were useless here. As soon as Ray returned, Sign reminded him, Ray, you came home late. Seeing his mother's anger, Ray suddenly remembered, oh no. I was too focused on thinking until I completely forgot. Sign asked irritably, what time did I tell you to come home? Ray hurriedly answered, 7. Sign then made a speech long like other mothers when their children forget the time while playing and what time it is. Do you know how many bad people are in this world? You will be punished for 2 days. Even though she doesn't want to, Ray can only accept her mother's punishment. Night falls. Outside the small house brings Ray thoughts which is blurry after being reprimanded by his mother. Even though I had come here, I was still treated like a child. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Commander's mansion, everyone was still shaken by what Ray had done. Both the night squad captains and the soldiers were still tightly bound, everyone wondering in confusion what just happened. Who was that child? Even Alicia and the Imperial Commander's wife were confused at this time. The Imperial Commander, who was lying motionless on the bed, suddenly coughed. The movement of someone who was thought to be dead shocked everyone. The maid immediately exclaimed happily that the Imperial Commander was alive. The tightly bound captain couldn't see anything on the bed and stammered, how is that possible? Is the Imperial Commander really alive? The Imperial Commander's wife saw her husband out of danger, suddenly remembering his rude behavior, his family towards Ray. First there was Alicia's angry shout, how can you tell me to trust you? But more importantly and worryingly, there was the rash action of the night captain, who pointed his sword at Ray's face and shouted, you lowly commoner. Surely that action had offended the person who had just saved the Imperial Commander. The Imperial Commander's wife reflected on everything that had happened and started to feel guilty. She sighed and admitted, I didn't even recognize my savior. I really had made a big mistake. Looking straight at the captain's direction with a firm gaze, the Imperial Commander's wife demanded, take responsibility for this and find him immediately. This directly damages our family's reputation. The captain was shocked by his mistress' request. He stuttered. At that moment the binding magic disappeared, the captain suddenly losing balance and falling. Madam repeated her request, find him and personally apologize for your rudeness. Faced with Madam's order, the captain reluctantly complied. Yes, I understand. The butler remained calm and finally said, it is amazing how a young man could achieve such a miraculous feat. The captain suddenly made a statement that made everyone stunned. Could he be a saint? The Imperial Commander's wife was a little surprised and confused, said, a saint? But I have never heard of a saint who could using magic. The butler agreed, neither did I. The captain insisted on his opinion, explaining, look at the Imperial Commander's relaxed expression, he must have just fallen asleep. Everyone saw it, right? If he wasn't a saint with the ability to bring the dead back to life, how could he? Maybe this could happen. So who are the saints? They were chosen by the gods to have immense divine power. They can also hear the words of the gods, are deeply loved, and are even considered to be the representatives and reincarnations of the gods. The lady pondered, but as really as that child? I've never heard rumors that our kingdom has a saint. The captain argued, then could it be that he's an unknown saint? The servant seemed convinced by this theory and agreed, right, isn't this a disease that even the archbishops can't heal? The person who healed the Imperial Commander must be a saint. The butler looked at the captain with concern and asked, so how do you treat a saint, captain? The captain lowered his head, sorry, I am very sorry for my stupidity, I caused trouble to the Imperial Commander. The lady sighed and said, no, didn't we all just stand by and watch? It's our fault. Alicia also admitted sadly, Ray is not a saint, we should go to him and apologize. Suddenly a warm voice sounded from the bedside. What which you guys were talking about? Did you just say a saint? The Imperial Commander had woken up and could even sit up. He was completely astonished to hear everyone talking about Ray as a saint. The Imperial Commander regained his strength, asked loudly, I asked you what happened while I was unconscious. Alicia stammered, well, a saint healed you, father. The Imperial commander gripped the sheets tightly, holding back his anger, and asked, "So I owe my revival to this saint?" Seeing the captain of the Imperial commander burst into anger, shouting, "And you dare to be proud of your rudeness? What the hell?" The scolded captain panicked and shouted, "Imperial commander!" The shout irritated the Imperial commander even more. "Don't shout." Imperial commander did not hesitate to give instructions. "Use all the manpower we have in the mansion." This bastard used every means possible to find him. Soon, his scream echoed throughout the room, showing that he had recovered significantly. At the same time, Ray, who was reading a book, felt his ears itching. He muttered, "Did someone just mention me?" The next day, the day in the quiet forest, Ray and his mother were preparing to do something. Sign excitedly cheered, "Good luck, Ray." In Ray's hand there was a broken twig. Ray stretched out his hand towards the broken twig and shouted, "Healed," but nothing happened. His magic failed this time. This Ray couldn't believe he couldn't do a healing spell. He fell silent in shock. Sign took this rare opportunity to tease, "Oh my gosh, you failed, how cute." Thinking there was something wrong with his ability, Ray immediately tried to repeat the magic he had previously succeeded in. First the fireball. Although it looks a little strange, compared to usual, it's still fine. Then perfect light magic. No problem. Trying again. Ray pointed his hand at the broken branch and shouted, "Heal." But this spell still failed. He angrily waved his arms and legs, wondering, why doesn't this work? Why? Sign cheerfully said, "Come on, let me explain. Listen carefully. Healing is a spell that uses mana to increase a target's vitality." Hearing his mother's explanation, Ray thought to himself, "That's too simplified," but he still with patiently listening to his mother continue. "Try to imagine using your mana to create a layer that covers your target like this. Heal." Sign explained and demonstrated at the same time. Sign encouraged Ray. "It's not that difficult. Try again. You understand, right?" Ray answered yes, but it seemed like he wasn't sure about this knowledge. Suddenly there was a rustling sound from the nearby bushes. Sign was startled and turned to look. "Huh, what was that sound?" he exclaimed. "Oh, it's a deer. Looks like his leg is badly injured. What a shame." Sign looked the deer's wounds and got an idea. "Perfect. Ray, why don't you try healing the deer?" Ray asked his mother in surprise. The deer Sign was confident with his idea. He said, "Just think of it as practice. After all, he needs help." Ray thought about it and found the idea to be reasonable. I guess it could more better than practicing on a twig." Sign whispered to Ray, "Try to approach the deer without startling it." Ray felt a little strange. He thought to himself, why does it seem like mother is enjoying this situation? They both held their breath to approach the deer without scaring it. But Ray didn't mean toe-stepping on a twig. The movement startled the deer, making it look at them. Then he ran into the forest. Ray exclaimed. He ran. Sign excitedly instructed his son, "Go catch it." He was still shocked by his mother's reaction. Ray hurriedly chased the deer. The question ringing in his head, why do I have to do this while running? Ray wondered, is it worth it for the hand of God to put so much effort into studying healing? He asked himself and then answered himself, of course I need to make sure I do everything I can to save as many lives as possible. Seeing the deer in the range of his magic, Ray immediately reached out and used a binding spell. He remembered, if I think about what happened in the past, the people here, instead of understanding my model's medical knowledge, they are afraid because they weren't sure. Thinking about the past for a bit motivated Ray to learn healing magic, and he had also caught his target. Ray exclaimed, "I caught you." Ray scratched his head looking at the deer lying on the ground. Seriously, he was still running well with his legs injured. He stroked the deer to calm it down. "Now lie still. I will heal you." Ray was determined and very focused. He thought to himself, if magic is what they often use, I will definitely succeed in this. As Ray performed Sign's healing spell, which not far away felt a strong mana flow, he froze and looked at Ray wondering, this terrifying mana flow, but how did Ray seriously pour all his mana control ability into this spell? He thought to himself, for the honor of a doctor I will definitely achieve next step, and then he shouted, "Get well." As a result, after a thunderous scream, the deer lay dead. Ray tried to shake it to wake it up but couldn't. Mother and son were both stunned by this undesirable result, silently looking at the deer that lying on the ground for a long time. Only after a long while did they react to this sad outcome. Ray's failure this time was truly a disaster. Sign exclaimed in confusion, "Oh my goodness, he died immediately. What happened?" Ray answered awkwardly, "He should have recovered." Ray sighed, thinking that he wouldn't be able to save lives like a doctor. He tried to recall the knowledge his mother taught him, pondered carefully, using mana to lay membranes and increase vitality. Isn't that what mother said? Ray looked at his mother, still shocked by the deer incident and wondering, why don't I understand how to heal when all the other mages can do it? Ray looked at his hands thoughtfully. Or is it because of which path I have? He even hypothesized about the situation that just happened, but not with a deer but with a human. Ray imagined an old man leaning on a stick coming to him for treatment. Young doctor, can you cure me? And Ray with his compassion enthusiastically agreed. Of course. Wait a moment. After that the old man exclaimed, thank goodness, how can I repay you? But then he coughed up blood and died immediately. Imagining the scene of using magic to kill someone, Ray broke out in cold sweat and thought, I should stay away from healing magic. From now on I can't took the risk of doing that to anyone who got hurt. So Ray's practice of healing magic ended up in the forest like that. That night when Ray and his mother came home, Sign specially prepared a sumptuous dinner, causing Ale to exclaim, wow, is there a special occasion? What's with the steak? Sign covered his mouth and chuckled, saying, about that. His lack of clarity made Ale even more curious. After hearing his wife tell about Ray's 3 failures in practicing healing magic, Ale had to restrain himself from laughing out loud. Wanting to tease Ray, Ale deliberately asked what our genius son can't cure. Sign joined in the joke while pinching Ray's cheek. That's what I said, ho ho, so funny. Finally the couple couldn't hold it in anymore and burst out laughing in front of Ray. He was both angry and embarrassed. Silent shut up, cursing. Damn it, I will never learn healing magic again. From now on the scene shifts to the Holy Gaia Empire, where a majestic and impressive castle appears. Inside the temple a golden goddess statue seems to emit a dazzling aura. Brilliant golden light illuminates throughout the room. Suddenly a voice resounded from the statue of the goddess Aya. The Pope of the Holy Empire, kneeling at the feet of the statue of the goddess, looked up and asked respectfully, Your Majesty, did you call me? The goddess ordered, find the new white-haired star.